The storm rolled over the desert like a wild, living, thing-hard wind, black clouds, and a kind of cold that didn't belong in Arizona. Luke Tanner had seen storms, but nothing like the one clawing across the horizon that night. He was closing the barn doors when he heard the voice, soft, shaking, but strong in a way that made him freeze. "I just need a place tonight," she said. Luke turned. A woman stood at the edge of the barn light, drenched, her long dark hair plastered to her shoulders, her clothes soaked through. Her eyes deep, watchful, wary, held the kind of pain a man didn't look at unless he was prepared to carry some of it. She was Apache. And she was alone. Luke stepped closer, careful, as if she were a skittish horse about to bolt. "You're hurt," he said quietly. The side of her arm was scraped, and she winced whenever she shifted her weight. "I can take care of that," she murmured, though her voice trembled. Just let me stay until the storm passes. I'll sleep in the barn if you want. My house has a roof," Luke replied. "And a heater. Barn doesn't." She hesitated, but when lightning cracked across the sky, she followed him inside. Under warm lamplight, she looked even more exhausted. "What's your name?" he asked. "Talia." She said it so softly it felt like a secret. Over hot stew and a borrowed blanket, bits of her story slipped out, not because she wanted to share, but because silence couldn't hold everything she was carrying. She wasn't just bruised on the outside. She had left a broken engagement on the reservation, a man whose kindness turned cruel, a situation that grew dangerous. Her family was split by old wounds, and she felt she no longer belonged anywhere. "I wasn't running away," Talia said, tracing the rim of her cup. "I was running towards something better. I just don't know what that is yet." Luke studied her face, seeing loneliness he recognized. His wife had died 3 years earlier. The ranch had been a hollow, echoing place ever since. "Everyone deserves a place to land," he said gently. For the first time her eyes softened. Talia planned to leave at sunrise. She insisted on it, but when morning came she was still limping. Luke offered to drive her into town for medical care and supplies. She accepted reluctantly. Days turned into a week as she healed. Luke fixed storm-damaged fences, and Talia, feeling guilty, staying for free, helped with chores, gathering eggs, brushing horses, cooking simple meals that somehow tasted like comfort. She moved with a quiet grace, her presence turning the house warmer without trying to. Luke found himself listening for her soft footsteps each morning. Some evenings they stood together by the corral fence, watching the sun sink behind the mountains. "My grandmother used to say the desert has a spirit," Talia said once. "If you listen long enough, it tells you where you belong." "What's it telling you now?" Luke asked. She smiled faintly. "That I'm safe," but peace didn't last. One afternoon, a truck kicked dust across the yard. A man stepped out, jaw clenched, posture aggressive. "Talia's ex-fiancé. I came for her," he snapped. "She's mine." Talia froze. Luke stepped between them, calm but steady as stone. "She's not yours." "And she's not going with you." The man tried to push forward, but Luke didn't move an inch. "You need to leave," Luke said, voice low. "Now." Talia's ex spat curses but finally retreated, tires spinning in the dirt. When the truck disappeared, Talia sank onto the porch steps, shaking. Luke sat beside her without saying a word. Eventually she leaned against him, just enough to feel that she wasn't alone. After that day, something shifted between them. Talia moved through the house with more ease. Luke found excuses just to be near her. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments that said more than words ever could. Still, Talia insisted she wouldn't stay forever. She didn't want to be a burden. She didn't believe she deserved a new beginning, but Luke saw it differently. He saw a woman who brought life back to a place that had been empty for too long. One crisp morning, he found her standing by the horse paddock, sunrise painting her in gold. She looked peaceful, maybe for the first time. "That storm that brought you here," Luke said softly. "I've been thinking, maybe it wasn't just a storm." Talia turned toward him, her eyes questioning. "Maybe it was something trying to guide you home." She shook her head faintly. "I don't have a home." "You do," he said, his voice warm. if you want it. Tears rose in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming truth of being wanted, being chosen. Luke took her hands, rough and gentle at once. I don't want you to stay just because you needed shelter. I want you to stay because this is where your heart feels at peace, and because mine feels at peace with you. Talia let out a breath that sounded like release, like healing. I never expected this, she whispered. I just needed a place for one night. Sometimes, Luke said, pulling her close, one night is all fate needs. Months later, they stood beneath the wide Arizona sky. Friends, neighbors, tribal elders, and ranch hands gathered around. Talia wore traditional beadwork woven by her grandmother's cousin, and Luke wore his best hat. They exchanged vows shaped by two worlds, joined by respect, resilience, and love born from a storm neither of them saw coming. When the ceremony ended, Talia looked at Luke with a smile that held every step of her journey. I asked for a place to stay, she said softly. Luke brushed a hand against her cheek. And you found a place to belong. Their story became one the desert wind carried about healing, kindness, and the unexpected roads that lead people home. A story reminding anyone who heard it that sometimes the moment you feel most lost is exactly when your destiny finds you.